Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got a Tyranids video for you today from one of the infantry units from the Tyranids Codex. We're going to go through that data card, we're going to go through my personal tactics and playstyle with them. We're going to go through some comparison alternative units that you could use instead of this unit. And then at the end of the video we're going to rate or hate it. There's no in between, as you know. Before we do, a little plug for our Facebook group. If you've yet to get involved in the Facebook group, there'll be a link down in the description below. We're putting, not quite daily now, I've slowed down a little bit, but we're putting content out, pictures out of behind the scenes, what's going on, what I'm getting up to, and so on. Sometimes it's a bit of a sneak peek of what's to come as well, like battle report maps and the terrain and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to get involved, do me a kind favour and join. Is it join? I always get that mixed up. Is it join or subscribe on Facebook? Whatever it is, I think it is join. Join the Facebook page. Planet 40k Facebook group. There we go, get my words out. Right, let's get back on track. We're going to go with the Von Ryan's Leapers today. One of those infantry units within this Tyranids Codex. So, data card. Let's start with this data card then. We've got a 40mm base per model. You can have a unit of 3 or a unit of 6. And they're all equipped with the Leaper Talon. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But first we're going to check out, well, in fact, there's 75 points for 3. We've nearly forgot the points again. 75 points if you want 3, so that's 150 points if you want a full unit of 6. So let's get those statistics in then. Movement of 10 inches, so pretty fast. Toughness 5, 4+ armor with a 6+ invulnerable save. I don't know how I feel about 6+ invulnerable saves. I suppose it just gives them a definite save. -3 AP isn't going to affect it. But yeah, it's got a 6+ feel no pain, 6+ invulnerable save. I love it to have a feel no pain save. Invulnerable save. 3 wounds apiece. So when a minimum unit, you're going to have a wounds total of 9, if you look at it that way. Leadership is 8+, and OC 1. Now those last two statistics I'm not that keen about. Leadership 8+. We'll talk about it in a bit more detail in a moment. But as for the OC. Let's move into the abilities. And then we can kind of get into why that leadership isn't so great. It's got fights first. That is good. That's always good. Fighting first no matter what is lovely. They've got stealth, which is that -1 to hit if you're shooting at them. And infiltrators. Infiltrators is a great ability you can deploy within the no man's land. And that also acts as an anti-infiltration kind of unit as well. Because units can't deploy within 9 inches of one another and so on. But why I don't quite like that leadership 8+ is because this is a forward deploy kind of unit. It's not likely going to be within Synapse, especially turn 1. I mean, it can be in Synapse, don't get me wrong, but you may not be in Synapse. So if you've got an 8+ leadership and you've lost a couple of models, or if you've lost 4 models in a larger unit, it's not great. It's not great. It's quite easy to fail the battle shock test, and if your opponent forces a battle shock test for whatever reason, there's some abilities, as you know from our own Tyranids Codex, in fact, there's lots of abilities that force battle shock. So if you've got an 8+ without the Synapse ability, it's kind of stinky, isn't it? Now the unique ability here is Pouncing Leap, so you can target this unit with the Heroic Intervention Stratagem for free, for 0 CP, even if you've already used it this phase, because you can jump into engagement range, assist with some attacks and whatnot, and maybe even clear a unit that's trying to get involved with our stuff, really. So that's the abilities. Not bad. I mean, the fights first, infiltrates and stealth as a combo is quite cool. And Pouncing Leap. Now the actual weapons, we've got the Leaper's Talents. 6 attacks per model. So that's a minimum of 18 attacks, providing that the 3-man team is still intact. Hitting on 3, strength 5, -1 AP, 1 damage. So -1 AP, 1 damage only really works on the lighter stuff, let's be honest. Anything that's 2 wound models, it's a bit wasteful. -1 AP against, power armor is a bit wasteful. I mean, it can do stuff, don't get me wrong, it can in numbers. But really you want to have a bit more AP and a bit more damage against those elite kind of infantry, or elite troop factions if you like. But if you're going up against, for example, Guardians, going up against Orc Boys nowadays? Yeah, Orc Boys. Going up even against our Termagants as an example. The weaker stuff, that -1 AP, likely puts them on a 6+ armor save and 1 damage is all you need. Then yeah, that's great for those kind of units, but not against the majority of the game, really. Right, so tactics wise, what am I doing with the Von Ryan's Leapers? So I would infiltrate them. They've got infiltrate, you may as well make use of it. Again, you can be using it as an anti-infiltrate unit, so make sure you are deploying them first. Making sure you are dropping them first before your opponent can or thinks about doing theirs, because you're taking up an area of the battlefield that's in the no man's land that your opponent now cannot deploy within 9 inches of. If you start putting your Tyranid effects and your other, Barb Gaunts, Neural Gaunts first, then your opponent's got a chance to maybe put their infiltrators out. And then you've lost that space in the no man's land to put these guys out, the Von Ryan's Leapers. So make sure you're trying to put them out as early as possible to beat your opponents to the punch. Preferably you're infiltrating them behind a ruin. They've got in the infantry word, and yeah, you want to be obscured. Preferably onto an objective as well, and preferably the central objective, because there are secondary cards such as teleport homers that work in the center, or cleanse. Area denial actually works in the center as well. I mean, cleanse works on any of the no man's land, but you get my point. Deploy teleport homers, area denial are 2 that will work in the center. And yeah, you can score an early cleanse if you get that card. Now, if you don't go first, then to be honest, this unit comes a little bit of a liability to the rest of your army, because against like an aggressive melee faction, they can use them as a springboard, because they're going to be going into, maybe they're moving and advancing as well as charging. It all depends on what kind of faction and attachment role they've got. But some of them are able to advance and charge. So let's just say they move like a standard 6 inches and don't even need to advance here. You get your 12-inch charge as a maximum. So they maybe charge straight into your unit, do their piling moves if they're still there. You presume that they would be. We fight first, but let's just say they've piled in after you've done your attack shoot. They pile in, they do their business, and they wipe our unit. The Von Ryan's Leapers have been destroyed. Maybe they even get to consolidate because the objective's there. So you've just bought them an extra amount, an extra movement in the charge, in the piling, and the consolidation. They've gained ground. So that's not a good thing going up against like Orc Boy mobs and even Hormigons, things like that. You don't want them gaining ground like that, especially when objectives are involved. I mean, if you're going up against a gunline faction, it's a bit different because they work really good, in fact, because you're going to get into the no man's land early. They're not really going to pounce out. They're not going to come out and jump onto your Von Ryan's Leapers. And in fact, if you've got some unguarded infantry gunline kind of units, maybe it's Hellblasters or something, you can jump onto them, pounce onto them with the Von Ryan's Leapers, get into engagement range so that it completely nullifies the unit, unless they've got some sort of fall back and shoot ability or stratagem maybe. Don't get me wrong, a lot of factions have that stuff, but they've probably got to spend CP to do so, which they won't want to do. But you can get them within engagement range and make them redundant for a bit of time, whilst also doing damage to that unit as well, which is very handy. And you're just breaking into their lines, which they don't want you to do. They don't want you to get onto the big stuff. And there's objectives involved as well, of course. But yeah, make use of that infiltrators keyword, and also the movement itself. 10 inches of movement is pretty rapid. You've got a free heroic intervention if you need it as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but it all depends on if you go first or second. It all depends on what kind of faction you're going up against. In some matchups, they're great. In others, they can be a liability. Now, as they've got the Vanguard Invaders keyword, there's a number of stratagems that are available to directly use with the Von Ryan's Leapers. So from the Vanguard Onslaught Detachment, I'm going to show you a couple here. The first one you've got is Surprise Assault. Surprise Assault is battle tactic as well. So if you do have a Hive Tyrant, you can get this for free. So one Vanguard Invader unit, which it is of course, and an enemy unit. You basically get to force a battle shock test, and you're going to get a +1 to hit anyway, and if they fail the test, it's a +1 to wound. So that can be helpful for your damage output. You're now hitting on 2s, and potentially you're going to be wounded on 2s, maybe 3s, depends on who you're going up against, of course. But if you're using this against an enemy unit within the no man's land, and maybe they've got the secondary that gives them Storm Hostile Objective as an example, if they fail Battle Shock, they're not going to be able to gain the objective because they've got no OC. Or it could also be like Secure No Man's Land, things like that. So you can actually completely damage their scoring potential with their secondaries by using Surprise Assault. Another one in there is Invisible Hunter. It's 1 CP. Again, it's used on, well in fact this is used on 2 Vanguard Invader units or a standard infantry unit. This applies to both, I suppose. And you pretty much just remove them from the battlefield and put them in Strategic Reserves. Now what I like about this kind of ability is, I mean, first of all they've got to not be tagged, but if they're not tagged, and maybe they've already done their job, maybe they've already done area denial, maybe it was already cleansed and they've done it. They're now just sort of pissing in the wind, they just need to go somewhere. So you can remove them from the battlefield for just 1 CP and hold them back for later on in the battle. Wait for the right card to come up, bring them back into play, because the Leviathan rules now don't apply where you got to come in by turn 3 because they start on the battlefield. So they can come out turn 4, come out sort of whenever they want really. If you get the right card and there's a right space, bring them out. They've done their job early, why just throw them away because they've done their job? You may as well get a better unit, a more durable unit to hold the no man's land, because this unit isn't massively durable. So yeah, I would sort of pull them and wait for a better day. The final one I wanted to mention is Assassin Beasts. It's 1 CP, another battle tactic stratagem in fact. A Vanguard Invader infantry unit. Basically you can give them more precision. I mean, it's another useful trick if you're being charged at by an attached unit, a unit that's got a leader within it, or you're charging a leader unit. You can pretty much just, for 1 CP, put all 18 attacks, or if that's a min unit, isn't it? I mean, you could have 36 attacks, all the attacks straight onto the leader. I mean, even a minimum unit of 3, let's say you've got all 3 models there, 18 attacks, that's an average of 12 hits. That's providing that you've not used the previous strategy we spoke about, which was Surprise Assault. So that's an average of 12 hits. Potentially stick 6 wounds on them. If you're wounded on 4s, depends on the leader of course. If it's a toughness 5 leader, that will be an average 6 wounds. So it's got a chance of killing the smaller leaders. And this just works double bubble if you've got the secondary assassination. Then yeah, that's going to be really handy, not just for this unit, but any Vanguard Invader infantry unit can use that. Now comparison wise, we need to look at all the units that are quite similar in terms of the damage or in terms of the scoring capabilities. There's quite a few here. I've got 3 that I've listed that are sort of the top 3. The first one is Lictors. The Lictors are 60 points, so they are 15 points cheaper than your Von Ryan's Leapers. They've also got Fights First, they've also got Infiltrators, they've also got Stealth, but they've also, on top of those, have Lone Operative, which is what the Von Ryan's Leapers do not have. Lone Operative means you need to be within 12 inches to actually be fired upon. And that in fact could go to a 6-inch with the stratagem within this detachment as well. However, wound count for a min unit of Von Ryan's Leapers is 9, as we said earlier, 3 wounds per model, whereas the Lictors is a total of 6 because you've got 1 single model. Toughness 6, which is better than Toughness 5, but no invulnerable save whatsoever. So it all depends on what you intend on doing with your unit. I mean, I think Lictors are slightly more on the stealthy side, being a single model. And they can also rapid ingress for free, which I definitely would be using. Even though they've got the infiltrate keyword, you may as well rapid ingress, why not? Just note though, if you are using the rapid ingress stratagem, it's only once per turn, so if you do plan on using it on some other unit within your list, then you can't use it both. Unless one of them is going to wait for turn 3 potentially. You just got to bear that one in mind if you do have a Lictor. Another unit here is the Neuro Lictor. So a little bit more of an upgraded Lictor. The Neuro Lictor, 80 points, so 5 points more expensive. Same abilities again, except for it's trading Fights First for Lone Op. So it's got Lone Op but doesn't have Fights First. It's got Precision though at Strength 6. And it's got 7 wounds, but I mean that is still less than 9 as a total. They are more durable however because they've got the 4+ invulnerable save, so even though they've only got 7 wounds, I definitely would rather have 7 wounds with a 4+ invulnerable save than 9 wounds and a 6+ invulnerable save. They also do loads of cool stuff with Battle Shock, as we've probably mentioned in a few videos now, so I think I'd probably prefer the Neuro Lictor over the Von Ryan's Leapers. Then the final one is another type of Leaper, in fact. This one's a Leaper, not a Lictor. The Death Leaper, 80 point Death Leaper, an epic hero. Again, the exact same abilities, but also has Lone Op, also has Precision, and also has Damage 2. So whereas the Von Ryan's Leapers do not have Precision or Damage 2, the Death Leaper does. That also does a load of cool stuff with Battle Shock, and it's got 7 wounds again, which is less. 3+ armor this time with a 4+ invulnerable save, so I definitely prefer that. So I think that's another option that I would select over the Von Ryan's Leapers. The Neurolictor I definitely would, and the Lictor, I think it's 50-50. It kind of depends on what you want to do with the unit. Right, let's get on to the rate it or hate it section of this video for the Von Ryan's Leapers. Let's summarise first of all before we get into the actual rating. I mean, leadership 8+. On a 4 deploy unit, I'm not that happy with. They're likely going to be out of synapse. The melee output is only really useful on the lighter targets. And infiltration in general on non-durable units can become a bit of a problem because you can get swamped against melee, well, aggressive melee factions. So there's a few negative points that we should really say there before getting on with this. Personally, I'm not a fan. Whenever I have used the Von Ryan's Leapers, they've done absolutely nothing. They've just died. Turn 1, they're dead. Maybe you can call it a distraction. If you want to call it a distraction, you can. But if you want to have a distraction unit, there's probably better units to do that. I mean, we didn't really do any comparisons for distraction units. If you want a unit that could score a nice quick cleanse at the start of the game, providing that you get first, then yeah, it's a good unit. I just don't think it's one of the best units, and my experiences playing with them and going up against them, in fact, have just not been great. They're just not very memorable, and they die very early. So for this one, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go with hate. Hate seems like a strong word here, but there's just better options. Lictors I think are good, definitely because Neurolictors. If you want to go sort of more infantry melee base, you've got Gene Stealers. If you want the speed, you've got maybe the Parasite or Mortrex. We've got loads of options, which is actually a nice problem to have. But there's always something better in one of the departments. They're like the Jack of all trades, Master of none.